In 3, 2, 1. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, to another Agility Leadership Network meetup. And obviously, I'm joined here this evening by my awesome co-host, Ashleigh. Say hi, Ash.
Hello.
That was an amazing hello. Right, tonight here in the UK, tonight's meetup is all about you guys, right? And this is something that we've really wanted to do for some time. You know, we are passionate about when we get people like Dean or somebody to come along and actually share some amazing thought leadership and love learning and hearing what they've got to share with us. But tonight, today, this afternoon, wherever we are, our GPS is in the world right now, it is about an open mic, Ask Us Anything event. Now, it is themed, and the session, as the meetup page shared, will focus on agile leadership and also what good looks like, sort of inside and outside technology. We are going to dive, hopefully, into some questions that we often get asked in conversation around things like, what could agile mean for me and my organization? In what ways does it actually impact us? How can I support my teams and organization to become more agile? And how do I navigate the political arena to define and adopt the best ways of working for my organization and people? Now, you know, hopefully tonight we want people to be able to ask the questions they have, the burning questions, and to obviously then have everyone here also help with the answers. The way we'd like it to happen is, if you've got a question, to use the raise hand feature in the reactions in Zoom. And obviously then we will see all of those people obviously move to the top left of the Zoom window, and we will be able to take it in turn with the questions you have. We would also like to make sure we're inviting everybody in the audience who does want to provide an answer or provide some thought leadership to the particular question that one of the community have asked, to obviously feel free to come on cam, come off mute, and actually share their experience or their particular answer as well. Now, we will be looking to obviously mute people who are obviously providing lots and lots and lots of answers, and obviously letting other people organically come on and join in as well. Good evening, Mr. Corrie, great to see you here as well. So questions, please use the raise hand feature. And then obviously answers, please, obviously, let's try and involve as many people here today in helping provide the answers. Now I'm going to hand over to my good friend, an amazing colleague, Ashleigh, who I believe has a pre-seed question from one of our community that are here this evening.
I do, and actually, I'm probably going to hand over. Coco, do you actually want to ask, because this is your question, so I'm really inviting you, if you want to ask, you're more than welcome. Oh, I can also ask on your behalf too.
I don't mind. Thank you, Ashleigh. In a nutshell, I am at the start of my Agile journey, and I've been doing my own research. I have reached out to providers, both private providers and across colleges, etc. And I'm finding there's quite a disparity between the different types of Agile courses, the different types of modules, etc. And when I reach out and ask questions as to what will this give me within product development, within design, within IT, within working with governments, I'm not really getting a response back. And these courses are actually quite expensive. So what I'd like to know is, what is the best way of finding out which type of course? Clearly, I'm not looking for names or institutions, but what type of Agile course might be useful in a setting such as, for me, government and healthcare, where we have to test and trial products. So Prince2, for example, is far too restrictive, far too linear. We need something very, very flexible, which allows trial and error. Quick example, we test, for example, various cardiovascular drugs. You need a control group and a non-control group. So you can't keep using Prince2 simply because you will fall over very quickly. So that's the setting. And that essentially is my question. And can I genuinely thank you both, Ashleigh and Giles, for letting me ask the question as a newbie?
You're very welcome. And again, right, it's not about us to provide answers. We do genuinely want to hand over to the community. So whoever feels like they've got the first sort of, salient points, some thought leadership to help Coco, then please feel free to come on cam, come off mute and say hi to Coco, and we'll go from there.
Giles. Oh, go on. Sorry, Ashleigh.
I might start the segue if that's okay, actually. Coco, I'd really like to ask you a couple more questions before we get into this, really, because what you'll probably learn from most wonderful people on this call is that Agile has a lot of brands, and everyone on here is going to have different experience with the different brands, which you might hear things like PMI, Agile Certified Practitioner, APMG, Project Management, Program Management, Scrum, the International Consortium for Agile, Scaled Agile Framework, et cetera, just to name a few. And I'm sure these are probably the brands that you're going to and reaching out to understand more.
Yeah.
So with your area it's the NHS, right?
It is the NHS and actually central government, so working directly for the United Kingdom government.
Okay. And do you, in your program team or your delivery team, does anyone have any exposure or previous experience to Agile methodologies at all?
No, our particular team is at the start of the journey. And although the UK government provides Agile training, we have also been asked to look further and wider to see what other people are doing and to find something a little bit more bespoke, not just to do the tick box exercise that we have Agile. As you say, we've ticked the APMG box, but just to see what else is out there. The focus is to produce something as flexible as possible, which isn't restrictive, which allows us to test.
Okay, so you're looking at kind of doing a lot of ideation and iteration to test things before getting invested in them, while also needing to balance high level of regulation within the healthcare environment as well.
Yeah, and the same for the government sector. There's a huge amount of regulation. There's a huge amount of statutory and other laws that we have to meet. And ideally, I guess what we want to tick those boxes to say, yes, we've done that. We've met all those regulatory frameworks, but now we are free to go away, design and experiment and implement.
Okay, and you've got the investment from the senior leadership.
Yes.
Encouraging.
Yes.
Okay, that's half the battle. So that's great news. You're in a good place if you've got all of your senior leadership on board with this. And I've seen a number of public sector organizations in the US and in the UK start to adopt Agile methodologies and really, really pick them up in a beautiful way. So you're in the right place, and I'm excited for you. So there are a lot of brands, and I mean, I don't know, guys, do you want me to just give a quick overview of these brands, or does anybody want to dive in who's experienced in helping a company get on the first rung of the ladder of their Agile journey as a team and go from there?
May I ask her, how do they measure their success? Did you need to write a business case with ROI at the beginning? Because if you work with the public sector, they are very keen on heavy and long business case, detailed ones, return on investment. So this is the first question I would ask. How are you going to measure the success of your project? Because in Agile, we use different metrics than in Waterfall. So if you have the buy-in from the stakeholders, how do they, this is something when I started in Agile, I had to explain them how we are going to, the different way success is going to be measured.
So the way we are approaching it is luckily quite straightforward. So the business case is essentially a very efficient, very streamlined document that essentially acts as a mandate to get us going. But how we manage the project going forward is entirely up to us. We just have to be assured that we are using Agile. So in a way, a lot of free
question.
Yeah.
You mentioned about Prince, and that's Prince 2, managing successful programs. So does this whatever approach you take, need to fit in with what's happening in the rest of with your colleagues who are using Prince 2 and MSP?
Luckily, Well, actually, quite funnily, what happened is with Prince 2, people were using Prince 2, and because it has a very, very strict linear methodology, we kept being called into 3-star chamber meetings where we were told, you keep failing. And we had to explain, no, we are not failing. The drug or the product we are trialing has not had the effect that was stated at the beginning, because we are in a test phase. Therefore, we need to move on to the next test phase or the next idea and then test that. So we have proved the hypothetical starting point that we're going to start with this test, roll it out to, for example, 100 plus COPD patients, see what happens using that drug, using that lifestyle change, monitor the results, and then move on to the next trial phase. But in Prince 2, it looks as though we are failing. And that's when we started to explore Agile. And to answer your question, Neil, it was suggested to us, why don't you guys in your team start looking at Agile and have a little play around, go out to the market, see what's out there, and then bring your ideas back to the table?
I'll just add, from my experience working in the public sector over a long time, where you need to fit in with what else is going on, but working in an agile way and looking at feasibility of things and experiments using maybe different types of methodologies like Scrum, or if that doesn't work, XP or something else in that kind of innovation engine. You mentioned APMG. They do something with the Agile Business Consortium called Agile PM. That's actually a really solid start. It gives some rigor to the project delivery, but allows you to do some experimentation in there. So it ticks all the boxes of trying to keep regulators happy, but it's still fairly lightweight. Okay, so it actually works really well, and trying to sell that into government is a really easy sell because it just ticks so many boxes. And often you find if you go in with something like Scrum or an XP approach, you scare the living daylights out of leaders. Going something with a little bit more rigor, something that you can tailor to your specific needs, because it doesn't matter which kind of what actually calls a brand, what style of agile you take, you need to adapt.
And adding on,
doing Scrum doesn't necessarily mean that you are going to be agile. This is the problem I had on one of the jobs. That means we were just implementing a framework, but we couldn't turn the company into an agile company. Different between doing and being.
Valerie, there's no mention of agile in any of the Scrum guides that they've produced. So there's a misnomer that it's agile. It isn't, because if it was agile, it would change. It would allow change. It allowed you to evolve. It's a rigid framework. It's very lightweight. But as soon as you start to venture off that, then is that still Scrum? Because according to Jeff Sutherland, it isn't.
But quite often you have a water Scrum, especially in the public sector, with a lot of time spent still on requirements. That was the question I had for her, is that how long does it take from requirements to testing? You know, this is also a way to check if they do really iteration, you know, or the lead time, you know, between, but I don't know if they are using those metrics.
I think you've touched on something there, Neil, because some of the words, some of the phraseology that's coming from the executive team is, we want something rigorous, but light touch. We don't want you spending more time working on the project management documentation rather than on the product or the business case itself. And it's interesting, you know, what you've just said, the executive team talk a lot about agile, flexibility, all of that. They never, ever mention Scrum. I've researched Scrum and what Scrum is, but it's interesting you say that. You've covered the public sector like I'm working in, but you're right, they never cover Scrum at all.
And the thing about Scrum and things like Scaled Agile Framework is, generally speaking, at the high level, those two methodologies, you have to tailor the business to conform to those methodologies. Whereas the others, like the Agile Certified Practitioner, APMG, they give you the Agile principles, and kind of like North Stars to guide you in making the right choices and increasing your ability to be nimble and get your trails out more quickly and know what metrics you need to measure so that you can pivot, right? Stop things that aren't giving you an ROI, continue with the ones that are. So the other methodologies, Coco, will sound like they might be a little bit more fit for purpose when you don't need that rigidity and to change the structure of your organization and the delivery team towards
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. That is it in a nutshell. It's happening within our team because I guess we are the design team and we test a lot of the products, and it's so varied. You literally could be called in to test a cardiovascular drug. We could literally be called in to say, we are trialing the new Moderna drug for COVID-19. Can you help set up some trials? It's extremely varied. But yeah, I think I like what you said, that this may be a better fit for our team because we're not changing the organization. It's simply a methodology for use within our team of about 40 people or so.
Alkesh, did you want to chime in? Sorry, I know your
Yeah, I
hand.
was just about to ask Alkesh because he's had his hand up for some time. So,
Right.
Alkesh, over to you.
Yeah, I think, okay, what I'd say is APMG do have Prince2 with Agile. So it may be worth you exploring a little bit to see what they've done with Prince2 and integrated this move away from the waterfall approach and integrated with Agile. But what I would say to you is leave all of the methods and practices aside and stop and think about the purpose. Why do you want to go Agile? What is it that they're looking for? And if you can put that in a nutshell from the leadership to say, what is it they're looking to do in terms of things like more agility, faster response times, less cost, you've mentioned, the speed to do all these kinds of things. Look for what the benefits are that you're looking for in this, and then appropriate the right methodology to get you there. Don't be so strict about it either. Exactly as Ashleigh says, some of them you almost have to change your business to fit around, which is ridiculous. What you can do, and many people do this, is they mix and match bits of different agile practices to come together with, we call them frameworks, to come to deliver what you need. So think about the purpose first. Think about the benefits of agility, which are really, in a nutshell, know what you want to get to, do it piecemeal, do it little and often to get feedback as quickly as possible. So that iterative delivery, and adapt and adjust your position based on that feedback and keep getting that response and adaptability. So you're not wasting money, you're not doing the wrong things, and you're using the feedback to adapt and adjust to what you need to get towards that goal. But start with a very clear shared goal. So forget about the agile practices and methods, think about the purpose and the mindset.
So that's very helpful. That actually has been covered.
Good.
So we know where we need to get to, which is, I guess, why they have said to us, rather than us doing to you and saying, we're going to set up an agile course and you're all going on it, go away and then come back with your ideas of what bits of agile you have seen or the types of courses that you may want to do, so we can actually have an open discussion. So that's the stage that we're at, I guess, idea gathering about the different types of courses, and as you've said, the benefits and outcomes, but they have done the shared vision, they've done the outcomes, they need the benefits and purposes, but I guess they're trying to be a modern leadership group of executives where they don't want to be seen as though they are doing something to us, which I guess, given the cost and hard work needed for an agile course to get to practitioner level, they probably don't want to lose us, is I guess really their thinking.
That's called lean thinking, which is good because you don't have you are decentralized in the decision making to the team level already. You don't have hierarchy, so that's lean thinking. It's good. It's a good start.
Yeah, really good, Valerie, and they're really being liked and respected for that, rather than just coming along, which is what happened with Prince. And it's a case of, here you go, get on it, you've got to pass, and here's your time frame, which you don't really get the buy-in from people, So yeah.
Can I invite Jeremy in at this point? And just to remind everyone, if we can use the raise hand, if we've got a point to add into the conversation. We've got Jeremy in at the moment, got Femi coming up next. If someone's got a point, please use the raise hand feature, and we can then obviously make sure everybody can help answer this. And if anyone's got obviously a new question that's burning as well at some point, please do feel free to ask as well. Jeremy, over to you, sir.
Yeah, thanks, Giles. So just kind of, I was thinking similar to what Alkesh was just sharing. I think part of that vision and goal discussion is also, what are the behaviors that we want to move away from, and what are those behaviors that we want to move toward, and be intentional about that, and what is that journey going to take, and what's the cadence, and how are we going to measure us? I think that is vitally important, and that was one of the things that I've learned kind of in my experience, is that, you know, if we get caught up in what framework or methodology or solution, we tend to navigate ourselves away from why we started this, because we get just so tunnel vision on a solution. You know, the other thing is it kind of, and I'm just hearing you talk, Coco, it feels like the framework in and of itself is potentially a blocker to progress, right? To just experiment. You know, what is one thing, if you've gone through the process of the vision, the goals, and the behaviors, what one thing could you as a small group experiment with? How did it work? What didn't you like? What needs to change? And allow that to drive the direction, as opposed to coming in out and just trying something brand new for everyone.
Fantastic, Jeremy, thanks. I mean, Femi, over to you, please.
Oh, thank you. Everyone's covered what I was actually going to mention. Fantastic contribution from everyone. Fantastic. Thank you so much. All I want to add is just to echo what Jeremy just said there, to approach this from a change management point of view. There's a common theme that's been, you know, bouncing around: change, change, change. And in that process, look at where were we and where do we want to be? Why are we changing? And then what do we need to accommodate, to facilitate that change, to take us on that journey? So we look at frameworks as nothing but a vehicle to get us from A to B, F to G, A to Z. It's that journey that is more important than the vehicle. And we've got to make sure that we define the reason for change properly. And we also bear in mind that change is changeable. So we're not just evaluating the reason for change today, but we keep an eye on that constant dynamic in the world. So what we're saying invariably is there's no silver bullet. There's no one cat fits all. It depends. And that's why we always joke that if you ask 10 Agile practitioners a question, you get 12 different answers. And oftentimes the answers may not be the same, but ultimately they get to that point of convergence. Yeah. And it's important to actually understand the underlying theme. So that's all I wanted to contribute.
Thank you very much indeed. I believe Alkesh has got one more point he just wanted to quickly raise, and then we're going to invite the next question, if that's okay. If Alkesh, if you can sort of keep it short and sweet, sir, that would be wonderful. We will open the floor up to our next question.
Well, thanks, Giles. Just wanted to say, I think one of the things I found is some of these organizations, brands, if you like, they get very anal almost about how they want to publish and support and control their brand. Others are very loose and easy and open with it. To give you an example, one of the most popular, in fact 58%, if you look at one of the stats meetings that we did recently, 58% of the community uses Scrum as a standard practice. And if you look at Scrum Alliance as a course certification, they have an open book exam. They have a fun sort of two-day course, which teaches you the fundamentals of Scrum and how to do it in a fun sort of interactive way. And the focus there is really just to get the message of Agile across to you rather than any formal certification. Conversely, PMI or PSM rather, PSM 1, 2, 3. There are very few people in the world who have got PSM 3 because it's so difficult, and you really have to know Scrum back to front and understand it in detail. So the reason I'm telling you that is because although all of them talk about Scrum and how to use it, it's if you're starting off on this journey, then think of it more in terms of the Scrum Alliance route. Get everybody engaged and happy and starting, and then think about professionalizing it later. But you're not going to change anything as long as you stick to its basic principles without adding to it, without changing, without thinking you've got unique needs and so you've got to add idiosyncrasies in. Keep to its basics, but just have some fun with it, because it does give you the benefits, and it does give you all of the, exactly as Jeremy said about the behaviors and stuff, and it instills the right kind of attitudes. That's what you want to do. Don't put people off. Just look at what Prince 2 did to your people. I know I'm a Prince 2 quite a bit, and I'll never forget those exams for as long as I live.
Alkesh, thank you. Jeremy, did you have one more point for Coco?
Yeah, I just wanted to share. So I had sent a link to a mural board that I had been working on directly to Coco, but I realized that, hey, others are missing out of value as well as myself.
They are.
So if you guys are okay, I can post a link here. Totally a work in progress. Co-create it with me, but I can send it off to you. That's all.
Please. I think it's absolutely awesome. Having seen it that first time you created it, Jeremy, for obviously your colleagues and your network of Agilists as well. It's certainly an amazing thing to please share. That's phenomenal. Are we in a good place to move on to the next question? Ash, I see your hand up, but I don't know if you had something to add to this question, or whether we've got another new question.
I've got a new question to segue us to new questions, but if someone else has a new question, they can go before me.
So do we have any new questions, or Ashleigh, do you want to jump in with yours and see where we go?
All right. I'm not hearing anything else, so I'll jump in. So in my Agile journey over the past 5 years or so, I've often worked with new clients to build something brand new, in a whole new product and division and team, and sometimes even new business being set up. But when we're building these MVPs, I know that everybody calls the minimum, whatever you want to call the minimum stuff, the minimum marketable feature going into the minimum viable product, all the plethora of minimums, if you will. When I've been on teams defining brand new MVPs, the area that I've always struggled with is not on getting the features defined towards the minimum viable product, but it's more APIs and integrations. And I find it quite difficult when, and sorry, I know this is diving straight into a very technical question, but I know there's a lot of experts on this line. So I guess what would best practice be when you're building something brand new and you don't even know what the data points are going to be, what the features look like, what fields, you have to define what that is and do your user stories and the features first. But at the same time, I always get this bottleneck of getting the integrations and APIs going, and then launches get delayed and delayed and delayed because you underestimate how much work it is to plug everything in. And I just, over the years, myself and several colleagues of mine, we've thought so many times about how can we be better at this and prevent these bottlenecks, and we can't figure it out how to get it to go smoothly without these bottlenecks. Does anybody have suggestions?
So Russ has got his hand up. So I don't know if Russ, if you've got the raise hand feature, but I saw your raised hand. So great to have you interact. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, I could probably do that electronically as well. Let's see. Here's the raised hand. Yeah, Ashleigh, here's the thing. When I first started teaching people Agile, and it was never in an Agile course, it wasn't a thing I would snuck it into other stuff. The smart guys would always catch me out, and they say, but this means that you have to have really smart people on your team. There's no room for people that are just learning, and that's the truth. Mary Poppendike is very strong on this as well. This is engineering stuff. If you don't have really good engineers who know what they're doing and know how things glue together, it ain't going to work, right? You've got to be able to, the whole idea of, so I talk a lot about chunking. So they've got a big thing, and Agile's really good at helping you to chunk it up, and each bit is really good, and you just go, right, I've got that chunk working, I'll get it out, and then I can build the rest of it on that. So you're always trying to push out things that are small but foundational. Unless you've got a really visionary person that can communicate how these bits work together, as you say, how the interfaces are, then it just isn't going to work. And you know, I borrow a term that comes from the unified process, which actually Agile was a bit of a response against. They didn't like RUP as it had become, because it was big and clunky and over-engineered. But they had this concept of a baseline architecture. You do enough iterations that you get to a point where you go, the basic architecture of this works. I now can, you know, do something end to end, and, you know, a little light goes on there, and everybody can see how that works. And that's good enough that we can teach people how the architecture works, how things fit together. And the problem with architecture is it's invisible and it seems to have disappeared. So there's no focus on it. We just don't have that anymore. We don't have somebody that defends. This is the, you know, in an application that's got user screens and stuff, this is the way that we basically do a user interface or a screen or talk to the database. And that lose, you know, that loss means that you don't really have the scalability within your product. And then I'll just give you one more analogy. If you think about, if you're building an aeroplane, right? Today, aeroplanes are built in different countries around the world. The fuselage, the wings, you know, the tailplane and the engines, they are all built in different countries and different factories. And they all come together. And in the case of the wings, this is honestly true. I used to work in this industry. The wings are super glued onto the fuselage, right? There's actual glue in there. And that means that people have had to think about, you know, how's the interface between that wing and that fuselage going to work? How all the stresses and the strains and all the control systems have to line up. This stuff does not happen by accident.
Yeah,
So architecture matters.
I think that's the key takeaway of us as a leadership group. We'd never done Agile before, and we're just kind of the blind leading the blind, without knowing we have a problem, but what the heck do we do about this? And just coming up empty-handed. But you're right, get the right people in the team.
The right people. And you're right, you know, you intuitively went, the interfaces are the way that you bolt things together. That's absolutely the right area.
Thanks, Ross.
Valerie, I see you were trying a moment ago and had the wrong hand, but that's fine. So I noticed.
I just wanted to, yeah, actually, Ross, that what you just said about architecture, that's what we apply in SAFe, because when you look at the LPM at a portfolio level, we have an enterprise architect, at a train level, a system architect, and they always talk to each other. There is a lot of coordination. So I fully concur. I agree with you. So because I'm using SAFe a lot, and I don't know, I know some people don't like SAFe, but quite a good operating model when it comes to, I would say, the defining MVPs and using a lot of those enterprise architects and a lot of collaboration with the other system architects.
Thanks, Valerie.
Just to add to that, SAFe for Architects actually covers a lot about some of the interface work. I know we're talking about architecture's changed significantly now, talking about microservices through to like cloud-based stuff, you know. But the thing that you think about is testing up front. Think about some of the better DevOps, DevSecOps, and start thinking about write your test scripts, your idea of how it's going to work. You know, to Russ's point, the interfaces, how's all of this going to work? Think about designing those tests before you start building anything. So shift left, we call it. And the idea being that understanding what that end goal is in mind, how are you going to test your way to get there? Therefore, what are the pieces you're going to need? Therefore, how's it going to, you know, rather than design completely up front or build the whole architecture, you're just building what you need. But think about how it's, what I tell people quite often when I'm teaching devs, I say, yeah, how many times have they built something that's exactly met the spec, but nobody wants it? Because they haven't thought about how it's going to be used. Testing traditionally is about, let's see if we can break it. No, forget that. Start thinking about, does it do what it's meant to do, the way it's going to be used? Is it going to join all the bits together the way we're expecting it to? And think about that up front.
Brilliant.
Thanks, Alkesh.
Alkesh, thanks very much indeed. Ashleigh, has that helped answer your question? 2 thumbs up. I think that's a testament in its own right. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, as ever, we are welcoming people in with any questions or thoughts they might be having, especially with such an amazing group of people here today. Does anybody else have any questions that's bugging them, that's kind of causing them angst in the workplace? Anything which actually could do with helping them out especially with some of the amazing people who've been sharing ideas today. And as I said, anybody feel free to come off. KK, yeah, hi, please come and share your question and see if we can help.
Hi everyone, thank you. So I come from, I work in a HR team, and I am actually going through our Agile HR course. As you might imagine, HR is one of those functions that are late to the party. Nonetheless, we are coming in, we are getting there. So my question really is, at the beginning of the journey, how do you really get to change mindsets? Or should I give up and run? Not in those exact words, but you know, it's very waterfall, very budgets, very you know, big bang, let's launch this product. Whilst I feel that really to really gain that employee experience that people expect of today, you have to design with them. Thank you.
Alistair's there, and I saw his hand up very quickly. It's gone down, but it's up and down. Alistair, did you want to provide any sort of input, especially around the mindset piece for KK?
Hi, KK. Hi, everyone. The mindset piece is to me the most important piece, and I saw Neil drew some circles behind him and drew the. And at the top of the circle was the agile onion was the mindset, and that's absolutely right. How do we change mindsets? It's an interesting thing. I think one of the things that we have a tendency to try and do is we know we're right and we know everyone else is wrong, and we try and preach. We try and basically beat people into submission with our obvious logic and our total undying enthusiasm and all the proof that we have. And something that we picked up last week, in fact, when we were going through a situation where we were trying to convince the senior leadership of what we were doing, and they were not getting it. And some of us got frustrated, and some of us kind of lost it a bit, and so on. And really, we had a retrospective, and what we worked ourselves into was accommodate before you try to educate. And that was really where we went to. We need to accommodate them, because to them, sometimes sounds like we're speaking a different language. They don't have the hooks in their brains yet sometimes to adopt or adapt to anything. And what I try and do is I try and get into a place where I'm empathizing with them and their brain, asking them questions, trying to understand where they're coming from, what their fears are, what their reactions are, and so on. And it's by having a human conversation that we start to change mindsets. And we can't do it all at once. We can't do it. There's no one jab fixes all. It needs to be a process that we take people on, and finding out where they are, finding out the examples that apply to them, not getting rattled by their defensiveness, but actually working that. And then the last thing I would say is employ other people. And I don't mean pay them money, but one thing that Giles and I do a lot of is when I'm trying to convince somebody and I've run out of steam, I bring in somebody else as my uncle or aunt. You know how you listen to your uncles and you listen to your aunts, but you don't listen to your dad and you don't listen to your mum? It's kind of like that. Sometimes people will listen to a third person that isn't you to try and get those messages across. Uncle Giles, that's the one.
or Uncle Alistair. I mean, thank you. And great as ever. Thanks Al for sharing. Femi, you're up next. If I look left to right in terms of hands raised, we do have a question from Bareka, which I want to make sure we do come on to and go through as well. But Femi, please do provide your response to KK.
Thank you. So I'm going to show my vulnerability here and show, share with this audience how I've failed miserably on my Agile journey. And I emphasize miserably because I used to be this guy who wants to change people's mindset. You must recite. I want to be the Agilist with a growth mindset. And I'd say repeat it 1,000 times. And I failed miserably because people were just not joining me and not, sharing the journey with me. Until I came to that realization that first of all, I have to meet people where they're at. Meet them where they're at. And secondly, take them on that journey that we walk together and share experiences, share knowledge, not educating them, but sharing with them and demonstrating with them. And more importantly, make sure that I, adopt practices and ways of working that will take them to their destination. It's all about them, but with a view to making sure that they adopt changing practices as they go along that journey. No two clients that I've worked with ever embark on the same journey. They take different buses, they take different vehicles. Some of them end up with the same destination of transformation, but how they get there always differs. So the mindsets that we always emphasize that, we got to change their mindset. What if they don't want to change their mindset? What are we going to do? We're not going to give up. So it's not the mindset that needs to be changed as such. It's the journey that is more important. Meeting them where they're at and finding out where they're going, and then articulate all the necessary skills that we know of to get them to that destination. So that's my summary there.
Femi, thank you very much indeed. I'm going to hand over next in queue to Alkesh and then Valerie, and I think we've got Bareka's question, which he shared in the chat, but I'm looking forward to the cohort here providing some answers on that. Good evening, Elaine. Thanks for joining. All right, Alkesh, over to you.
Just a quick, am I back off you? Just a couple of points to make. It's certainly from HR, you'll be familiar with this. With them, what's in it for me? Think of it from their point of view. Everybody and anybody in change, you need to stop and think, what's in it for them to change? And the way that they behave and what they do. I mean, in the Agilist world, we all think automatically about the obvious kind of benefits. I think, in the confessional, Giles, I said to you, we get paid quite well to impart common sense, because a lot of what we do is obvious and common sense, but it isn't to some people for some reason. It's complex to some people. And it's not because Agile and its benefits are complex, it's because they're in an environment that isn't allowing them to be free and to think and to act in the way they do, right? So they end up acting like the environment around them. So what's in it for me? And think about why do they act the way they do? And from a HR point, you need to stop and think before you think what you're going to do to them. Stop and think, why do they act the way they do now? Why don't they? Why do they plan 5 years ahead and not next month? Why do they not collaborate quite as well as they should across silos? Why do they have silos? You think about some of the whys and attack those rather than changing the individual, because it's sometimes not the individual that's at fault here.
Brilliant.
So
thank you, Alkesh.
Performance code.
Valerie, welcome back.
What I just wanted to say is that each time I failed is because there was no sense of emergency or tipping point, like Cotter said. That means we want to embark them on a journey, to change things, but there is no sense of urgency quite often. And if there is not the case, so what's the point? We are not going to be able to implement any changes if they don't feel that changes are needed.
Yeah. Thanks, Valerie. Brilliant. KK, hopefully that has shared some answers for you. Thank you for obviously joining in the chat window as well. Is that okay? Do you have sort of some things to take away and think about, and obviously potentially reach out to some of our friends here again afterwards if you need any further help?
Yeah, potentially, but that gives me some, good insights already. And again, I believe sometimes it's about the decision-making structure. I think that plays a part in it. But I think there's good insights around, working with them and their mindset, how we're going to try to change that. But I guess we're very early stage, so, I shouldn't get discouraged.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Okay, fantastic. Brecca, over to your question, and let's see who here is going to be able to provide some answers for this amazing question.
It is a bit, well, a bit complex, I think. It's not only about unqualified accountant or stuff. We can ask these questions in general as an unqualified person working in an organization. So how you manage those type of colleagues, and how you delegate them, or how you give them autonomy by applying agile techniques, so they look the interests of the company, not themselves. So again, not only in the IT, agile is applicable to other industries as well, in financial industry, or manufacturing, or construction. I mean, you name it, of the industry. So how I see is mainly some people focusing on IT, but I heard some NHS, the National Health Service in the UK. So Agile is not industry specific. So I'm just curious how you apply Agile. What do you do? I mean, specific examples. I mean, not theory. I mean, when we talk mindset, okay, that's a theory. Let's see some practice. What do you do?
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, well, look, Gabriel's in next, and then we have Alistair following on. So Gabriel, welcome this evening. We'll do yourself first, and then follow on with Alistair afterwards. Welcome.
Yeah, nice to be here, guys. Perhaps I can give my own experience on that. I started working with Agile, like it's been more or less a year and a half, and I was not that good on that. I can say, like, I was not a terrible professional, but I was not good to be adapted on that framework. But what happened? And like 1 year and a half, like now I am a product owner. What I did, and I work very closely with my managers, my team leaders, and so on. I started with the basics, to understand the details of the framework, how to work on the different tasks. I would say to understand the whole picture. And it worked. I mean, consistency and communication was one of the most important aspects, I would say. And in the long term, I mean, 1 year and a half later on, it worked. And like I was a specialist back that time, and now I am a PO. So the close communication and contact with the leaders from the team, it worked very well. So yeah.
I think.
Was there Alistair? Was it Russ? I see Russ is.
I think Alistair was because he'd had his hand up just very briefly, and then we can get Russ in afterwards.
So Director, just to understand the question, are you saying that you're asking how an Agile leader can lead a finance staff within a matrix? Yes.
Yes. The matrix is the most complex organizational structure. It's not flat. Everyone communicates with everyone. But how do you motivate, how you run teams in such organization without being micromanager? I really cannot stand myself micromanagement. I really dislike it. But how do you apply the technique, an agile technique, Because we talk, I've been listening the group, we are talking lots of theories, but I think perhaps it would be more helpful for everyone to talk practice.
That's absolutely right, and I definitely want to get to that. I just want to understand. So, because you mentioned a finance team, or of the finance staff in the matrix. Are you talking about how do we lead generally without micromanaging, or do you mean specifically how we lead finance without micromanaging?
Both. Because don't forget, finance is one of the most important in every organization as a team. And a CFO or whichever is the finance director, that she or he should be able to successfully lead his or her department and help to the managing director or the CEO.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. So how are you without micromanagement? And I've seen in my life many worse scenarios that actually ended up micromanaging instead of giving them autonomy. Why is that? Why is it the people psychology or being that type of character of the leader?
I think there are a lot of things in there, and I don't know how much time we have, and maybe we can.
We've got time. We've got time.
Okay, fine.
And so we're not going to rush tonight.
No, that's fine. So I think first of all, yes, I think there is a psychology element to this. I think there's also there's an experience element to this. So being somebody who is a finance professional, I'm a chartered accountant, who was able to see the light and move away from the dark side, as you can see from my my background here, into Agile, and also the leadership styles. I was brought up in the sort of late 80s, early 90s, before 2000s, when management was very much command and control. It was very much do as I say and do it this way. I think what we need to move to is we need to move to this idea where we give people, as leaders, we give people the what and the why, and then we allow the teams to figure out the how. Now, how do we actually physically do that? For a leader to move from one way of dealing with people to another, they need to first understand intellectually that there is an alternative way to deal with things. But then we need to offer them, I think we need to offer them an approach or a way that they can experiment without fear of failure, without fear of looking foolish, and all those things. And the way we do that is a number of ways. We can do that through games, through experiences, immersive experiences, which allow people to see that actually by letting the team do the work without being all over them. And you can actually test this, where you can ask them to do something in a micromanagement way and ask them to do it in a non-micromanagement way, and they will see the experience. It will take a little bit of time, but they can do that. Another way to do it is ask them, once they've understand the theory, is to go and apply it in a non-business context. So for example, they may well, if they're accountants and so on, they may well be involved with an organization outside of work, and maybe a charity, maybe a school, something to do with schools or scouts, or maybe a football team or something like that. And what I suggest to people is to experiment with in those ways which won't then make you feel that you're at risk in your work environment, and take those steps that way. I think it does take time to get there. I think there are lots of examples that we can give. One thing I like to do is give people examples of organizations and businesses and leaders themselves who have made that change. I think it is a process. I don't know if this feels practical enough for you, Boretka, but I think it's about taking the human being that you're dealing with, and as we said earlier, and as Femi said so well, taking them on that journey with you, but make sure you're not sitting there and saying, you provided that report and that was wrong. It needs to be, that time that we were playing football and you did this, and then we can help them connect the dots back to work, and it's safe. It's a safe way of doing this.
Yes.
And that's my starter for 10, Boretka, if that helps.
Yes, thank you. Well, indeed, and I put also the unqualified, but what I meant that they lack knowledge and experience to do the job. So for instance, let's imagine a scenario, a CFO comes to the new CFO comes in and the staff is has been sitting there without proper training and proper background. So that's a serious issue for every colleague or any of us here sitting here, that we have to deal with the staff who, if you don't help them out, I mean, the work is not being done.
Sure. I mean, a quick
But
example
that's
there.
micromanaging again.
It is.
Which we don't want.
Absolutely it is. And maybe, sorry, Ashleigh, and maybe what we look at there is one book I love to go back to is Dave Marquet's Turn the Ship Around. He talks about the fact that if you're going to give autonomy to people, they also need to be competent.
Yeah.
Because if you give them autonomy without competence, you just end up in a mess. There are a number of ways that you can get finance folk, and I know a lot of unqualified accountants who are absolutely brilliant accountants because they've learned along the way and they've got help along the way. Sometimes the trick, it depends on what you can afford to do. Do you need to send them on a training course? Maybe that is what needs to happen. But often through coaching and through pairing people up, there will be in a team some people who are slightly stronger than others. Maybe through pairing people up and giving people the opportunity to learn and understand when mistakes are made, how do we treat those mistakes? And this would be my third point, is we need to learn how to treat mistakes in a way where you don't try and hide the mistakes, but you expose them so that you can learn. And people need to feel that. And if you're in a micromanagement scenario, which can end up being quite toxic, what I've experienced is you hide your mistakes as hard as you can and as diligently as you can, and then no one learns from that. So again, so hopefully those ideas are practical, but obviously without being there with you doing it, it can sometimes feel a bit theoretical.
Russ, do you want to add on top of that? I know you had your hand up a bit before, and then I think Jeremy's after that.
Yeah, great. I'm not going to add on top. Actually, something that you said, Dr. Andre, you triggered a line of thought, and I went back to what is this agile thing anyway? And I just reduced it to nothingness in seconds. I just want to share that with you, and then I'll talk to you about something that happened in the bank today with the CFO. So first of all, I truly believe the opening lines of the Agile Manifesto are the most important. We are discovering better ways of developing software by doing it and helping others do it. I genuinely think that all of this noise about Agile, call it whatever you like, it was never intentionally going to be called Agile. It was going to be called lightweight or other ideas. I think all of this is just an evolution of better ways of working. I don't think there's anything magical about Agile. In fact, this kind of goes to Coco's question. I don't think there's anything magic here at all. I really don't. So I think that we are just literally finding that there are some things that can't be determined by plan because we can't predict them as well. And therefore you need different ways of controlling and managing those. They're emergent. So it's much more important that what you do is you measure and study and correct. So frankly, I think that's all there is. I don't think it's anything grander than that. There aren't really any great practices or methods. There's lots of people that have got different theories, all of which work, by the way. Scrum works for some, and so they all work, but there are no real methods other than this idea that just inspect as you go and correct as you go along, because gosh, that's the right way to do anything. So it's deep common sense. The other thing that I just want to share with you is this, and this is genuinely a conversation with a CFO of an investment bank. So you're talking about a budget of so we spend $2 billion. So we have $3 billion of revenue. We spend $2 billion in costs. And we make $1 billion in profits. And this CFO is in charge of that, and she happens to get it right. She's been doing this forever. And she made that journey of going from old school way of doing it, learning her craft, standing up to the nonsense and going, actually, I see there are better ways of doing it. So she's really rare. She's got that different way of thinking. We were talking today and she said, but Russ, surely this is just common sense. Surely eventually we're going to have leaders at the top that have come through this and learned to do this. And I said, and everyone here is nodding, I said, I think so. This job that I do, this has got a window of about 10 or 12 years before nobody needs this stuff anymore.
Thanks. Thank you.
Brilliant, Russ. Thanks, Ash. Who was next? Is it Jeremy? Ash.
Yep. Then Jeremy, Brecca. Hopefully that gives you something
Yes.
something helpful and useful to work with.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Then on to Jeremy, and then I'll cash after that.
Yeah, thank you. So as I was just hearing the conversation, I love what everyone said. You know, I was thinking about foundationally, how sound are we? Right. And when I think about the foundation is, have we had the honest question on why, right? Not just why are we micromanaging, but why is it so important to us? And what do we lose if it goes away? Right. As we start navigating those discussions, we start to identify little experiments that we could navigate to without even mentioning the word agile, to Russ's point, right? Because that doesn't bring value. Because really what we want to do is we want to change behaviors. We want to change our outcomes. We want healthier relationships. And I'm very big on going back to those foundational components, similar to what I was sharing with Coco. You know, what are the behaviors as an organization that we can recognize, acknowledge that they're going on that aren't healthy, that we want to move away from? And again, how do we measure ourselves? What does that conversation look like? How can we fail through that process? Because someone brought up failure earlier, and be okay with it, right? Failure is just another way of saying success. I mean, to be honest, as long as you're having those, inviting those discussions in a healthy way, in a healthy forum. And the other thing that I'll say is look for those champions throughout the organization to help with that, specifically like around sounded like there's some training discrepancies. You know, is the training, you know, is the community training? How is the community teaching back and upskilling? You know, I've seen a lot of folks that just kind of sit back in their chair waiting for the organization to do something, when really what they're doing is they're allowing the organization to kind of maintain that behavior instead of owning it themselves and defining the direction that they want to go. So there's a couple ways to go about that, but you know, for me, just to kind of stop talking is really look at those foundational components and what are the opportunities, the small opportunities to have those conversations.
Thanks, Jeremy. Alkash?
Yeah, I just wanted to add just this thing about agile and its terms and stuff. We really, in the community, I hear almost every day people saying, can we drop the terms? Can we stop? Really what we're talking about here is the common sense stuff, and we do this all the time. I'm sure you've heard me talk about cooking so many times, and I say, you know, when we cook, we're doing agile, we just don't know we're doing it. So start making people think about what they do on a day-to-day basis, and that's all we're asking you to do in the workplace. And I mentioned cooking for those people who perhaps haven't heard me before. You know, when you're cooking something, you have a vision, you know what you're going to cook, you put ingredients in and you taste it along the way. And you get that instant feedback and you add a bit more or you change or whatever. And at the end, you end up with something that is edible. Great. If it isn't, pivot. You know what you did wrong. If it is right and it tasted really nice, it looks nice, guess what? You're probably going to still think, next time I'm going to do something different. I'm going to add something else. I'm going to do something. That's continuous improvement. All of those things are practices that we do on a day-to-day basis. Why wouldn't we do that in the workplace with each other, the way that it's not a science, exactly as Russ says, not something special in this, not magic, it's common sense. And that's all we need to go back to doing, is just being able to do common sense and pivot on things. And then just one last thing is, and back to that HR point and Coco and the others, think about encouraging people to make mistakes and reward them for making mistakes, because we as a human race cannot evolve unless we make mistakes. I talk about life is like photography. We develop using negatives, and we really do that. If things went right all the time, we wouldn't need to evolve, we wouldn't change, we wouldn't get any better. We learn from our mistakes. And I say mistakes, all failures are really learning opportunities. Encourage people to experiment, try things, so they know what the right path is. If you don't let them make those mistakes, or you punish them for it, they will stop making those. Innovation will stop. You will disappear. So yeah, and I appreciate Russ. We're talking about billion pound profits. Mistakes can be expensive, but guess what? You learn from those and you save more than that.
Fantastic.
I'll shut up now.
No, Alkesh, thank you as ever. I mean, this has been phenomenal. And generally, absolutely loving the conversation. Sheila, great to have you. Over to you.
Yeah, hi. I missed a lot of the conversation. I kept getting interruptions, so I'm not sure if you've already covered this. But one thing I've noticed with people that I'm talking to now is a lot of the places that that used to have a business process flow that was enterprise-wide have gotten very siloed. So when I talk about things from an Agile perspective, people go, wait, but you're branching and branching and branching. You need to light somewhere. You need to focus on something. And they don't really understand that because their mindset is set on that. So I think that if you're talking, you can't have one part of an organization be Agile without the whole organization being Agile. And I think you have to find ways to introduce that to the conversation, that you can't just look at it from your own perspective, which kind of goes back to continuous process improvement, which predates Scrum and goes back to Lean. But that's kind of where things are going with all the movement back to a product focus instead of a project focus. That was all I wanted to say.
Fantastic. I mean, if anyone's got any points they would like to add to that, I think it's phenomenal. I'd also like to say, there you go. Neil's latest whiteboard edition this evening is Ingrained Culture. It's fantastic that we are having the interactions from his whiteboard this evening. We've also got lots of fantastic, the chat's been on fire this evening with some amazing points. And obviously, certainly want to thank everybody. We are coming up to quarter two. Russ would like to see more from the whiteboard. I'm not necessarily sure whether that's possible or not, but we shall see. Does anyone have any final question or anything they would like to get our amazing community to provide answers for today?
I'll ask the question and stand on my balance board. How about that?
Okay, go for your quick question on your balance board.
Yeah, look.
And then obviously let's see.
So I'm adapting. I've got a stand-up desk, and I've taken it to the next level. I now got a balance board and a kettlebell for when I need to do squats. So we all have an agile mindset. Okay, the baby walking thing that I did. We all learn to walk by taking little micro movements until we get to a point that we start walking. We go into education and that gets squeezed out of us. It's like, we're a block of agile ice and we get chipped away until we're just a block. We're in nice shape, we turn into just a block. That we go through education and then get tossed into the workspace. Now we're asking people to be agile again. So we're asking them to unearth the inner stuff that they had as a child. And some people really struggle with that. Some people get it. Some people just need to see the art of the possible. I think I stuck that in a message. You give them the art of the possible, they see it, they go, oh my God, I never want to work in the old way again. So that's the shift that they need. You don't need to try to, chip away at them and recreate the agile thing. It's already in there. And I mean, I've only been doing this since 1992. So, I started in software, but in 2001, I started doing business change in an agile way. This stuff works. It's not easy, but you can actually start to make some really good progress.
Fantastic.
We're our own worst enemy, I think, Neil. Everybody overcomplicates things.
Yeah, look at this. I'm stood up chatting to you on a balance board. Whoop. Okay, maybe not.
I think we're our own worst enemy, but we're also our sort of best friend at the same time, because hopefully a lot of us also realize where the mistakes are. And to all the salient points that have been raised in the chat today, do inspect and adapt, as Russ and other people are raising, and hopefully identify where we need to improve and go on that continuous journey to do so.
I'll just add one thing, Giles, if I may.
Sure.
I was having a discussion with a bunch of sales and engineering people today, and they were struggling to understand this inner agile thing, this kind of growth mindset thing that everybody has. And so I said, okay, who's decorated a room before? Everybody put up their hand. I says, so do you just go out to B&Q or whatever, buy a big tin of paint and then start splashing it on? And I think there was only one person that had done that. Everybody else, no, their approach is to do tester pots. And they get, they go for their 50 shades of gray or whatever it is that they want. And then they try 3 or 4 colors. They live with it for a little period of time. And then they go out and buy the one that they really like, that works for them in all of the different lighting conditions that you get. Hold on a minute. Is that an agile approach? You're experimenting. You're doing small. You're not painting the entire room. You're just doing a small splotch. Hell, we do it all the time. It's just people don't realize that we're calling it agile. By the end of the day, they're going, oh my God, I can't believe how much agile we actually do. This isn't new to us. We were scared shitless yesterday. And then now we realize that we do this all the time.
It's okay. I can edit that bit out. That's fine.
Sorry, Del. Oh, I'm really sorry.
No,
I only called you darling then. That would have been even worse. I'm going.
Can I just say,
too many calls.
Yeah, exactly. Look, thank you, Neil, for your points. I genuinely think we need some agile cooking sessions after our session. I think we need some agile painting. I think we need agile kindergarten as well. There's a whole series of these things. I think
agile gardening.
Agile gardening. Yeah. We've had those conversations as well.
Charles, I just added something. I just want a reminder. I know it's great talking about behaviors and agile approaches and how we do it individually, but let's not forget about the interdependency, the bit after high performance, the bit that says we can achieve a lot more together than alone. And teams need to understand it's more than collaboration. Yes, it's more than collaboration. It's all about helping one another achieve a collective goal. That in itself will change mindsets, will change the way that people behave about this kind of, I'm not going to tell you what I do, then I lose my power and all that rubbish. The world has changed. Now it's a case of share more, agree, collective.
Yeah. We've all become soccer teams, haven't we? Or football teams for some, soccer for others.
Indeed.
Yeah. It's that holistic group performing something to the best of their abilities.
Yeah, help each other get it over the line.
Yeah.
Rugby for some of us anyway. We'll move on.
Rugby. Yeah, I was just thinking some people on the call don't know what football is.
Unfortunately, sorry, Valerie, we did beat the French at the weekend, but hey, that was I had to get one in there.
She's a Londoner, isn't she?
As a big England rugby fan. Jeremy, shall we say last wrap-up point from Jeremy this evening?
Yeah, thanks. I was thinking, I heard inspect and adapt, and I thought about, my personal agile journey, and it's like, who have I brought in, right? And earlier I mentioned about those champions. I've got, multiple coaches, scrum masters that I really try to go to that vulnerable place with them. And we allow that, that coaching and interaction to be really healthy. It's that whole accountability partner thing that Alistair was I think he had mentioned it earlier, where, if I'm not successful, I know someone that can, right? But I also need to be able to recognize that in myself. The reason why I'm saying this is because I just went through this great session with 5 Scrum Masters on developing their goals for this year, and really wanted to change the conversation of, no, you're not going to define your goals. Let us define your goals, right? Thinking about that Johari window that we don't see. So changing that up a little bit and just driving to that depth of conversation with them really took them to a place of vulnerability, a place of investment, and a place of accountability to each other. So I share that because it was just a great experience with them, to take them there and to hold it. memorialize it. So just wanted to share that last comment.
Oh, bro, thanks, Jeremy. That's wonderful. And thank you to everyone. I think we had about 30 people at the height of this. And, you know, it's an absolute dream meeting with you guys. I think we have a regular fortnightly drumbeat with our meetings now. And this community, I mean, Giles and I set up this group of Agilists for Agilists, you know, of the people, by the people, brand agnostic, recruitment agency agnostic. And this is just turning out to be even better than I think what we dreamed of back when we started this, isn't it, Giles? It's just such a safe space for us to come together and ask our questions. And you know, a lot of what you guys say, I'm sure all of us know in the back of our minds, or we read it before, we studied it, but just getting these friendly reminders and the different approaches and everybody's different flair on things, it's just really wonderful to see us all working towards the same better outcomes. And, you know, we couldn't be doing this without you guys. So thank you so much. Genuinely, from the bottom of our hearts, thank you for coming time and time again to these sessions. And just as always, we've got a couple events in the pipeline, so things to keep your eye on in the coming weeks or so. So we've got the next one coming up Tuesday, 6th of April with Pat Hoverstadt. We've got Getting Over the Bar with Organizational Agility. And then in 4 weeks' time, Tuesday, 20th of April, we have our very own Alkesh coming to talk with us and explain how safe is safe. And one you'll see coming up for the 4th of May, may it be with you always, is going to be an awesome panel event with 4 different experts on Agile outside of IT. And Giles and I hope to get that advert up this week.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you so much.
And
Giles?
Ash, thank you for being awesome as ever. Thank you for helping with the setup of this. Thank you to everybody whose questions were asked and answered today. The points have been phenomenal, and I genuinely, you know, it's always great, you know, hearing from some of the regulars who always have got great thought leadership to share. For me, for my own growth mindset and my own personal learning as well, I get a lot from you all as well, but also to some of the new people who are now starting to regularly come along as well. A really, really major appreciation for your support, in not only just for the group, but also for the people that are here that want to learn from you all as well, as Ashleigh was saying. So major appreciation. Thank you everyone for coming, obviously Jeremy, if you want, we'll get, you know, please share your link as well in the meetup chat as well. Sure. Afterwards, so people who have registered, all of the people who signed up will get that link into their inbox and they will be able to see it. And obviously thanks very much everyone, and hopefully see you all in a couple of weeks.
And thank you, Giles.
Thank you.
Thank you,
everyone.
Thank you all.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Hey, folks.
Bye-bye.